parts of the world. It's so good to have you today with us at the Nigerian Global Affairs Council, where we will be discussing a very important topic, which is startup ecosystem, particularly supporting the Nigerian startup ecosystem through legislation, a review of the Nigerian Startup Bill, where we have some very eminent Nigerians, particularly Resident Policy Fellow. Ade is the Country Director, UK Nigerian Tech Hub. Tim Wow Bilo, Non-Resident Policy Fellow, and myself, Abraham Onoja, the Director of Public Relations for the Nigerian Global Affairs Council. And we will be having a very interesting topic today. This is put together by the Nigerian Global Affairs Council. For those of you who are just joining, who might not know what it stands for, that's NiGAC. NiGAC is a technology-based and digital media-driven public policy and evidence-based research think tank that's focused on policy concerns that revolve around governance and public administration within the Nigerian state and how we interact with the larger world. Interestingly, today, before we start the conversation, which I know is very timely, very interesting, very captivating, considering the times we live in, I just want to quickly give us a brief as to what fintech is even all about. In case you're wondering, the global village that fintech enables brings markets and consumers closer, supports new businesses, and reduces reliance on the government in the process. And Nigeria, as the largest economy in Africa, is a growing and significant part of that global village. In emerging African economies where consumer and business banking are not commonplace, fintech contributes greatly to improving personal safety. 90% of internal Nigerian consumer payments today are still cash transactions, creating a broad set of risk which can easily be mitigated and minimized through the use of technology. It is also a common thread throughout emerging economies that there is a limited use of banking infrastructure. Well, will it be because of maybe the bottlenecks and all of that? Well, we will find out in the course of this discussion today. And even more limited trust. However, results, social media driven word of mouth success stories and recommendations about payments, transfers, the value of crowdsourcing are convincing an ever increasing element of society to take advantage of modern approaches to finance for their own benefits. That's, I believe, is interesting. When you send an email, for instance, it takes one click to the mouse to deliver a message next door or across the planet, just anywhere in the world. Gone are those days of special airmail, stationery, and colorful stamps to send letters abroad, and all of that. But today, international payments are different. Destination still matters. You might use cash to pay for a cup of tea at a local shop, but not to order tea leaves right? So you would all agree with me, all of this may soon change or is changing. In a few years, cross-border payments and transactions could become as simple as sending an email. It is already happening, but it's just going to it's going to be bigger than we're seeing right now. So financial technology or fintech is already touching consumers and businesses everywhere, from a local merchant seeking a loan, to the family planning for retirement, to the foreign worker sending remittances home. But can we harness the population while preparing for the changes? Questions. This is the purpose of today's discussion. Where are we? What's going on? What are the potentials? What are the bottlenecks? What are the challenges? What are the government regulations? What are the things that you think are mitigating these things and all of that? But like I said, today we have very interesting, vast panelists who will be sharing insights and explaining some of these things. Quickly, before we quickly start the conversation, I would like to quickly run through the citation. Adaize Sokan coordinates and facilitates the growth of local digital economies in Africa. She is interested in forging the right partnerships with stakeholders, as well as leveraging technology and innovation to achieve economic prosperity, which means job creation, inclusive growth, and access to much needed services. Adaize has spent the last 7 years working with and advocating for the support of the growth of digital economies as a vehicle for economic prosperity in program design, policy advocacy, fundraising, stakeholder management, and monitoring and evaluating the impact of the role of the digital economy in alleviating poverty. Believing that this can be one successful local digital economy at a time. Interestingly, she is the country director, UK Nigeria Tech Hub. Welcome, Adaize. Next, Davidson Oturu, who's a partner at ALEX Nigeria. Davidson is a partner at ALEX, a full-service commercial and dispute resolution law firm with offices in Nigeria and Ghana. He has an LLM in international business law and an MBA from Queen Mary University of London. His areas of special interest include financial technology, that's fintech, business regulatory compliance, intellectual property, international business, securities, and corporate finance. He has considerable experience in regulatory compliance issues and advises established businesses and startups in intellectual property, financial technology, data protection, cybersecurity, blockchain technology, digital assets, telecommunication, quite a lot, and business regulatory compliance. He is a chartered arbitrator with experience in local and international arbitration, having represented the regulator of the Nigerian energy sector and oil and gas companies in complex arbitration proceedings. As a commercial litigator, he appears before courts in Nigeria in corporate commercial disputes. He also handles intellectual property, telecommunications, and technology disputes. Interesting. Like I told you earlier, it's going to be interesting today. Next, Oluwadamilare Afolabi, who is a non-resident policy fellow with the Nigerian Global Affairs Council. Oluwadamilare is an experienced ambassador with a demonstrated history of working in think tanks, industry, skilled in presentation skill, team spirit, training and development, academic research, and skilled strong community and social service professional focused on psychology. She is also a course content creator. That's amazing. Lastly, last but not the least, Timothy Nwabilo, who is also a non-resident policy fellow with the Nigerian Global Affairs Council. Timothy is a mechanical and process safety engineer at GOG Energy Resource Limited. He is an engineer providing engineering and process safety support to onshore and offshore oil and gas E&P assets. And lastly, my name is Abraham John Onoja, and I'm the Director of Public Relations and moderator of the session. We will take it just like I read the citation. So next we'll take Adaize, after which we'll take Davidson, and we will take Oluwadamilare and then Timothy. But let's do it this way. Let's quickly take the non-resident policy fellow to give us an introduction or an inroad into the conversation today. So we'll quickly take Timothy. Timothy, are you there? Timothy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Fantastic. It's so good and beautiful to have you join us today. So
My
Timothy,
pleasure.
yeah, so quickly, you have 5 minutes to give us an opening.
All right.
Damilare, after which we'll take Adeze and we'll take Davidson. So thank you so much, Timothy, once again for joining us. So you have the floor quickly.
Discussing our startup ecosystem in Nigeria, and where we're coming from, where we are now, and where we intend to get to. It's no gainsaying that our ecosystem, startup ecosystem, has needed some injection of life and an injection of fresh ideas, given the sorry state it's been in a while, and for us to also measure up to current global trends. If we look back from the COVID-19 era that we are still in, but when it was fully, the onslaught was full, 2019, 2020, 2021, we see that there's a need for economies to quickly find ways to
Timothy, I have lost you. I can't hear you at the moment. I don't know if I'm the only one,
currently before
seem to have
the National Assembly. Sector now in Nigeria, over the last, I think 2020, quarter four 2020, and we had a case where technology was the fastest growing sector, and that has made the government, in collaboration with other tech stakeholders, to focus on the startup ecosystem, look at the bottlenecks that prevent startups from kicking off, from growing, from leveraging on the current technologies available, and from trying to make make the best business that they can, while also offering value to the Nigerian system. So that has brought about the course of this startup bill. I'm aware that Adeze is here, and also Davidson. I'm sure these are two people who work hand in hand with the federal government, trying to put up this bill. But I'll be glad to share my opinions and where I think some corrections should be made. Also, where there are benefits in the current bill, though we know that it will still have to go through the legislative process of first reading, second reading, before the president will have to receive it back for further signing. But I'll be willing to share my thoughts further. Thank you. Thank you, Abraham.
Thank you so much, Timothy. That was amazing. That was an amazing opening. Damilare, I see you're fully prepared for us today. I can see, right? Can you please unmute your microphone?
Good afternoon.
Oh, so fantastic and beautiful having you today. So please talk to us. We're discussing the startup ecosystem that's supporting the Nigerian startup ecosystem through legislation. So talk to us, Dami. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a really good thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, what I want to say is this startup system is something that is a good thing that that is in existence. And in Nigeria we cannot do it by ourselves. Government has to be in support, even the citizen itself. And so good. Nigerians have been actually doing well, most especially in edutech, since the COVID-19 has taught so many of us lessons. Edutech has been doing great. Even fintech has been doing great, and all other techs have been doing great. But startup ecosystem we still have a lot of work to do in Nigeria for it to be what we want it to be, and for it to get to where we want it to be, whereby we can benefit from its visions and its dreams, which they actually have in mind. So
fantastic. Thank you so much, Damilare, and thank you, Timothy. Adeze, good afternoon once again.
Good afternoon.
Amazing. When I was reading your citation, I was like, oh wow, just blow my mind away. Talk to me. You seem to be vast in this space, right? So
well, I'm learning so like everybody
eager.
else.
I'm so eager. Like I want to hear. Timothy has stuck to us, sharing the fact that okay, there might be bottlenecks. It's long overdue. He's in support of it. Dami is saying the same thing, talking about how it has simplified quite a lot of things. And then, judging from, COVID till this point, it has given us access to quite a lot of things that ordinary space. What's going on there?
So yeah, thank you for having me here, and I'm going to start with sort of giving a vision, because it's important that when we have the very big picture, and we understand why it then informs everything else, and this is what sort of informed the birth of the startup bill. Personally, I have had this mission, a personal mission since secondary school, to take Africa up.
Wow.
And it's because it wasn't a mission of the bill. It was a general mission of taking Africa up. When they rank different countries, obviously African countries never make top 10 or even top 50, right? And that was disturbing to me. And so ever since then, I've been on this mission to find the quickest path that would take Africa up. And I did different things until I stumbled on tech. And we'll find out that tech is, like you said, is the quickest growing sector of all the other sectors. In Nigeria, I missed the pandemic, I missed economic recession. The technology sector was pretty much the sector that was thriving in the midst of all of these complications that we had. And so it points to something that tech could actually be the trigger to not just increase our rankings amongst countries, but alleviate poverty and to create prosperity for everyone. And there's evidence. The big 4 tech companies in the world have revenue that's more than the GDP of most African countries combined. So imagine having one tech company raising tech companies and supporting the growth of tech innovators in Nigeria to create innovative solutions, right? And having one of those tech companies in every state, that would dramatically, change the economic state of the different states in the country. So it requires that we understand the potential of what tech can do, and we understand that we need to be collaborative, we need to be strategic, and we need to be targeted. And so understanding this now says, if we're saying that tech is doing great and fantastic, how do we ensure that regulation promotes this growth, harnesses this potential, right? And ensures that it is not stifling innovation, it is protecting customers, at the same time, making sure that we maximize the opportunity that is coming from here. And we not make the mistake of the past, like colonization and oil, because those times were opportunities as well. And I think in courses of history, Nigeria and African countries have had different moments to maximize opportunities for the economy. And we haven't really been targeted, we haven't been collaborating.
Don't you think we have another of those opportunities right now in front of us, considering what's going on between Russia and Ukraine? The prices are up there. Okay, go on. I just thought to chip that in.
Yeah, so you're correct. So opportunities present itself, right, to everyone, and we have to be careful to maximize it for our own country. With colonization, we missed it because we got carried away with what we wanted to get, selfish interest. With oil, the same thing, that oil became a resource curse. Now we have tech. And it's very important that we don't misuse or misprioritize or we don't misplace the opportunity that has come for us. And so the Nigerian Startup Bill was an attempt to ensure that there's regulatory certainty, that we create laws that work for the digital ecosystem, and that we protect local content for which this innovation is coming out of, so it benefits the economy. I can pause here. I don't know if this is a Q&A, but I can pause here.
No. We're going to come back to it, because trust me, from what you're saying, I really want to quickly engage you, but I like to talk to Davidson. He's been quiet. I want to feel his pulse, right? Understand what's going through his mind. He's listening to Timothy, listen to Damilare, he's listening to you now. Davidson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Actually, I have a noisy background, so that's why I'm not quick to.
No problem. I can. That person can hear you, and I like the boardroom view behind you. That's amazing. Trust me, I know you came on board with quite a lot. Daisy, listen to Dami, listen to Timothy. I mean, in few minutes, right? 5 minutes. Talk to us. Give us an opener. I mean, I've listened to Daisy talking. I mean, seeing women in tech. That's amazing. Come back to that. So, Davidson, talk to us. What's going on? What's your view about the startup ecosystem, the bill legislation? Do you think that's even enough? Do you even think we're tapping into this thing? I don't know. Just talk to us. What do you feel about this?
All right, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So the thing there with the startup ecosystem is, I mean, and everybody knows, right? It's growing, it's emerging, so to speak, and each year we keep seeing different things happening in every sector: edtech, fintech, agri-tech. You know, there's that.
Davidson, I have lost you. I can't hear you. I mean, Daisy, can you hear him? Okay, so Dami, can you hear him?
No, I can't.
Okay. Davidson, if you can hear me, I think we've lost you at this point. I don't know, it's frozen. If you can hear me. I can't explain this anymore. I think it's network or something. I can't explain it. But I think he's out. He might just maybe join us again and all of that. So quickly, Timothy, are you there? Timothy, can you hear me? Okay, quickly, right? I think Timothy's maybe somewhere or something, but quickly, right? I have these questions I've been. Oh, thank you so much, Timothy. You're welcome. So quickly, right? Discussing this. Women in tech, right? Adeze, to you now. Is the system friendly? Is it encouraging? Because this particular sector is unique. Like Davidson said a few minutes ago, is growing. And we know for most of these things, they are mostly, for lack of a better word, male-dominating sectors, sort of, right? Talk to me. How does it feel being a woman within the tech space, right? Within working in fintech? How does it feel like?
So I don't work in fintech specifically, but I work for the general tech ecosystem. Somebody you will consider a policy and program expert in the digital economy space. I don't know how to write a line of code. I'm not interested in learning how to write a line of code. It's not my strength. I have women friends who are software engineers, who are data analysts. And if you ask what is this space, from my experience, I haven't faced any type of prejudice or any type of discrimination as a woman. I haven't found it tough, actually.
Okay.
In my own experience, even though you will hear stories of other women who have found it very difficult to break through the ceiling. But you hear these stories from older women, mentors and people that we look up to, women who paved the path for most of us to not experience what they probably experienced in the past.
So what you're saying, I would say, is they handhold you or something, or they make it easier for you, or talk to me.
I'm saying that the women who, like me, the founder of Main One, Miss Funke Beke, that she was one of the pioneer Nigerian women that I can recall, who broke into the tech sector. I'm sure she faced some difficulties as a woman. I would say that it's reduced. It's not as bad as it was before because we're seeing many women founders, women tech founders, women that have started tech companies, women already having tech jobs. We're seeing a lot of that, and it's increasing. We're seeing women who have started out investment firms to support other women. So I can say that it's growing now. There's more awareness. It's not as bad as it was before, and which is a good thing. And I encourage most women to benefit from that. I mean, even as the country director for the UK Nigeria Tech Hub, we have a female-only business academy, right? That trains women founders, and we train them to develop their idea, to grow those ideas into companies, and to scale to global markets. So, and it's a women-only program. So you're seeing different types of programs like that targeted at women to encourage women to come out. And we're seeing men who are, I work in a space that is mostly male dominated. I'm very confident in what I do. I'm very outspoken. I understand that I am skilled. So I'm not in that field because I'm a woman, which is something that I need to pass across. So it's not because I'm a gender, I'm a woman that I am in that space. It's because I'm smart. It's because I understand my guns. I know what I'm doing. And so I feel qualified enough to be in the same room as a man.
But you have the requisite skill set to be able to thrive there. That's amazing. Well done. That's good. Timothy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Are we really ready for fintech in Nigeria? Are we really prepared for fintech? Right, that ecosystem. Are we startup particularly? That fintech space. Are we really, how do I put it? Are we really prepared? Right. Why I'm saying this is we have come across quite a lot of these startup organizations and all of that who work within the financial space, who just come up and swindle a lot of people and go missing. Some of them were able to apprehend locally at the end of the day after, a lot of bula and all of that. And some, either to one of those countries that are friendly with investments and all of that, and they're gone. So do you think we're really prepared considering our population, looking at our own, the level of literacy level we have been able to attain as a country, right? I'm not just talking about southern Nigeria. Putting both the northern and southern part of the country together. Do you think we are really prepared for this?
Okay, thank you, Abraham. So your question is specifically to fintech, right? Just fintech, yeah?
And startup ecosystem particularly.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I would say we are ready.
Okay.
Like Davidson said, it's an emerging area of interest where different thought patterns have to be integrated, different schemes have to be developed. Generally, startups, if you look at countries like the US, countries like Sweden, they've had different not startup laws per se, but small business laws, that have enabled their small businesses. You look at the history of startup laws, you look at the first country to ever bring up a startup law some 10 years ago, that was Italy. You look at the likes of Argentina, the likes of Philippines. I think those are the only 3 countries outside Africa that have enacted. But those countries saw the need to begin to engage the tech sector, more progressive. Bring that back to Africa. We've seen Senegal and Tunisia, like you're all aware, they have also enacted their own laws some 2-3 years ago. And then Nigeria is coming into the picture. I would say if we're not ready at any point in time, we are ready now. Given the booming, the way the tech sector is going to boom, the way it's booming now and the way it's going to boom in years to come. We are aware of the advent of the new web generation, the new web generation. Things are going to explode.
Sorry, Timothy.
Okay.
As the giant of Africa, like we have always boasted, Nigeria particularly.
Okay.
Are we doing this? I'm talking about the legislative process now. Are we doing this just because other countries are doing it? Or we ought to have even done this before now? Or
Okay.
we are doing this because we want to do it, not because Senegal is doing it or Ghana is doing it or something is doing it, just so you feel among, right? Are we really doing this because we should be doing this now, or we should have even done this like yesterday already? But since we didn't do it then, we have all it takes to maximize the opportunities within that particular space. So talk to me. Is that what this is about?
No, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say we are doing it because other countries have done it. We can also borrow leads from other countries that are progressing. That is not enough incentive if it doesn't favor our own local system. It's been long overdue. It's long overdue. Nigeria is currently Africa's biggest, economy. The technology is thriving. Nigeria has the largest number of startups, in Africa. Plenty of VC funding is coming into Nigeria. I would say we needed this law yesterday. We needed it last year. We needed it 2 years ago. But what with the COVID, it has further accelerated, the pressing need for the bill. Other countries may have done what they did, but if Nigeria was the first to do that, they wouldn't have any issue with it. So I think we've been long overdue, and it's good to see that the government, in collaboration with other tech ecosystem collaborators, have been able to piece something together. I'm sure that when the bill gets passed, there will be further iterations, possibly things that need to be tweaked here and there. But I would say that we needed this bill as late as yesterday.
Thank you so much, Timothy. Dami, I'm going to quickly ask you this. I'll ask you, but come back to you for your response quickly, right? So this bill hasn't been passed, right? Do you think you see a willingness from the legislator to sort of fasten the process in terms of passing the bill? Do you think you see any seriousness in that from the part of our legislators? Well, you will come back to that. But Davidson, just quickly, Dami, I'll come back to that. Davidson, can you hear me? I see you're back online. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so we lost you at some point while you were talking. Do you want to quickly maybe wrap up so we can quickly go ahead?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. Maybe I can even move from the direction that your last question came from. So in terms of the
sorry to add this. We are focusing on the startup ecosystem particularly, right? Me bringing in fintech was just maybe examples just to further buttress what we're talking about. But so talking about that, so you can go ahead, please.
All right, yeah, thank you. So in terms of the growth of the ecosystem, right, it definitely needs support on many fronts. And like Timothy said, over the last few years, it has become increasingly clear that much of the startups have been constrained to find their way through the murky waters of Nigeria's policies and regulations. The government needs to be able to clear the path. And that's what the Nigerian Startup Bill seeks to do. We in couching and crafting the bill, we've described it as having a big tent approach, which means that it's not just the policymakers or the regulators that are involved in it. The executive is involved in it. The private sector is involved in it. And the ecosystem is also involved in it. So we've tried to get feedback from a wide spectrum, of stakeholders, so that whatever we present will be all-encompassing, right, and directly address the needs of the ecosystem. Can the bill answer every single problem that the startup faces in Nigeria? Absolutely not. But as much as possible, right, even in drafting it, we scoped different existing laws and bills, in Africa and outside Africa as well. So Tunisia Startup Act, the Kenyan Startup Bill, the Ghanaian Startup Bill, all of these bills were looked at, so that we would have something that would work for us. But even at that, you have to take the peculiarity of Nigeria into consideration. I'll give you an example. In Tunisia, there are so many tax breaks. I think there's an 8-year tax break, and then there is a 2-year period from when a startup founder commences in the incubation system, where for 2 years, the government will be paying that startup founder to run his startup. if you look at Nigeria, there is absolutely no way that the tax authorities will be willing to give you an 8-year tax break, because that would require amending the Finance Act and a couple of other laws that exist. What we've tried to do is to work within the confines of what we see within the Nigerian space and the Nigerian tax laws and all that, and try and have something that at least addresses the immediate needs of the startup. There's a startup seed fund, that was also introduced into the bill, which will be managed by the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. And yes, we understand that there are so many funds that exist in Nigeria now. You have the NIDA fund, you have the IPF fund, all of these funds exist, and the ecosystem doesn't get any better. But what we had in mind was, let a professional agency be responsible for managing that fund so that it doesn't end up the way of other funds that exist in Nigeria, which was why we settled with the NSIA, to see if that can serve as a check. Of course, does it mean that it's a perfect system? Definitely not. Again, another thing that was introduced in the bill was a council. So there's a national council, but we couched it in such a way that private sector players can also form part of that council. What is the role of that council, right?
Hello, Davidson. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. Yeah, we lost you at some point.
Yes. So I was saying that the council will drive policies. The council will also work with the existing regulators. We've seen a couple of things that the CBN and the SEC and some of the other regulators in the startup ecosystem generally tend to do. We saw it with cryptocurrency and blockchain. We saw it with fintechs dealing in foreign share dealings. And what we've done in the bill is we've tried to introduce some clauses that indicate that before such arbitrary changes can take place, there has to be that discussion with the council. That council is headed by the president of Nigeria, by the way. It also has the vice president, the alternate chair. But there's also 3 members of the startup ecosystem who will also be part of that council. And how did we do that? We included a consultative forum, right? That is the Startup Consultative Forum, where you would have founders of startups, you would have VCs, private equity, fund managers, you would have angel investors, impact investors, stakeholders in the ecosystem. They would all form part of this forum, and then they would elect 3 representatives to represent the ecosystem from the council. Now, what this does for us is that on a consistent basis, you would have policies and recommendations that would flow out of that forum and get to the council. So this bill may not answer all the questions, but through that forum, we can consistently be tweaking and introducing further policies for the ecosystem. Because if the forum says, look, we need X, Y, Z, let our representatives push this to the council so that they can issue new policies, regulations, or even amend the act, then that can be discussed at the council level, and then further steps would be taken. So that way we can even solve more problems than the present bill may seek to do. Some other things that were introduced in the bill, for instance, was what is referred to as the Startup Engagement Portal. Similar to One Stop Shop, but it goes beyond that, right? It's a platform where all the regulators can be there, and then, of course, the forum will also be there. We know some of the challenges that startups face if you want to get a crowdfunding license from the SEC, for instance, or a fintech license from the CBN, and all of that. Now, the essence of this engagement portal is to make it easy for the secretariat. The secretariat, by the way, will be NIDA. Will make it easy for NIDA, serving as the secretariat, to reach out to these, regulators. And there will be a register of these startups that we refer to as labeled startups, right? That meets the criteria for labeling. So the secretariat can then liaise directly with the regulators and say, look, these startups are labeled by us. fast track the process for them to be able to get their licenses and permits, and just generally make the ecosystem, friendlier and easier and less cumbersome for them to do business. So again, it's not the magic bullet that was or gold bullet that would just enter into the system and then suddenly there's light everywhere, there are things everywhere. But I mean, we have things in there like innovation hubs, tech hubs. There's provision for accelerators, incubators as well. There are tax breaks for VCs and investors. So we try to, as much as possible, feel the pulse of the ecosystem and see what we can do with that. In terms of the National Assembly, as we know, the president has signed and transmitted it to the National Assembly for the process to take place. We have already commenced the engagement with the National Assembly. Late last year, we met with the Speaker of the House of Rep and presented a copy of the bill to him and discussed with him. And in fact, he said they were eagerly anticipating when they will be transmitted to the National Assembly, which that was done last week. So the conversation continues. Even as all this takes place, we encourage stakeholders, right, to be part of the system. There will be criticisms for the bill. I mean, we live in a country where even charitable organizations get criticized for how they distribute their own money that they own. What they're doing with it, they still get criticized. So the bill is definitely subject to its own criticism. Before we join on any bandwagon, let us understand the spirit and the intent of the bill, because we're not going to be able to please everybody. But what we've been able to do is to produce a document that would go some way in addressing some needs of the ecosystem. And we need to understand what it means before we, move in a particular direction. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. I mean, you've been able to shed light and insight into quite a lot of things I believe a lot of us didn't know. Just before I come back to you, David, because I think I penned down a few questions here I was hoping to ask. So, Dami, I know Davidson has already spoken about the eagerness of the legislators in terms of trying to pass the bill and all of that. Do you want to add anything to it, considering the fact that I already asked you the question earlier? You want to say something?
Okay. Yes, I just want to add something to it, which is I would say we are ready because it has to do with collaboration. If we say we are ready, that means we are ready to collaborate with startup investors, entrepreneurs, law firms, policy advocacy groups, and even representatives of the federal government. And let me say where the challenge basically will come from is going to be representatives of the federal government, because really, if our investors are ready to make us have access to venture capitals, and our entrepreneurs are also ready, they are ready to birth their ideas into reality. Law firms are also ready. Then the only thing that can actually stop us is our federal government, because they also have a role to play. They have a big role to play for us. We have some startups whereby they won't actually last between 1 to 3 months because of capitals. So they really have a part to play. So if we are ready on our part, are the federal government themselves ready to back up these startups? Are they ready to make sure that this ecosystem, once we start, it doesn't crash along the way? So
thank you so much, Dami. I think Davidson already said they met with Timothy, you want to say something quickly before I go back to the questions? Yeah, I see your hand. You raised up your hand. So
just to add to what Larry said.
Okay.
It's 2022 February. By mid next year, this current legislative cycle, that if this bill doesn't get passed and the president signs it before 2023, before he leaves office, that the entire legislative process is going to begin again, no matter how far they've gone before this tenure, is phased out. So yeah, that's something that we should also pay attention to when we interact with the legislators. I thought to just drop that in.
Thank you so much, Dami. Thank you so much, Timothy. And then Dami, I know Davidson earlier mentioned or spoke about the seed funds. So I don't know. I was hoping to also talk about that. So Davidson, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Go on.
You spoke about seed funds. And
Yes.
quickly what came to my mind was trader money and all kinds of monies that federal government was, I don't know, do I say disbursing or giving out to petty traders and all of that, right? Two things in mind. What are the assurances that first, this monies will get to the right persons? One, organizations. Yeah, that's one. That's two, right? How do we make sure that these funds are used properly? Like, so what are the checks put in place, right, to checkmate the organizations, or yeah, that these funds will be given to the seed funds, right? What are the modalities put in place to check that these things are? What are the chances, or what are the regulatory part of ensuring that the risk or the chances of corruption or for these funds ending up in personal pockets do not arise? And if it does, what are the penalties? What are the deterring points to say, if you do this, you get this, and if you do this, this would happen, right? So I just want to feel your pulse around that.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Once again, it almost sounds, sorry, once again, it almost sounds like we're looking for a silver bullet. Sorry, I called you Emmanuel, my apologies.
No problem,
But,
Abraham. Yeah, Abraham. It's okay. I know you are loaded. I want to talk to us, so it's fine. Yes.
No, but that's fine. Then I encourage as many who have questions to please drop them, so that as much as possible we can try and explain them. Some people may even read the bill and not fully comprehend it because, again, these are legal instruments, right? Some people read the Constitution and don't still get it till now, So, but I will start with the seed fund and contrast it with the likes of trader money and all the other monies that are circulating around the place. Now, the way that the startup bill is supposed to be implemented and managed, people need to understand the process. Let me start with the labeling process, right? So because God knows how many startups we have in Nigeria. What we then did was there's a criteria that has to be met to be labeled. Now, the purpose of labeling is so that you would be able to enjoy certain sort of incentives. Note, the startup bill would apply to all startups, but then there are some that would have to go through a sifting process and a labeling process so that they will then have something like a stamp of approval, so to speak. And then you will now say this startup can enjoy the incentives, because it's going to be difficult to have SMEs who already have SMEDAN, taking care of them. But this deals with tech-enabled startups. So there has to be a sifting process to confirm the tech enablement of that startup. And then they come into the labeling program, which now means that the Secretariat now has a register of them and manages them for that purpose. So that's one side that people need to be able to understand. Now, to gain access to that seed fund, you would need to have gone through this labeling process, because again, unlike trader money that is just all over the place, this program has to be monitored and effectively implemented. If you look at Tunisia's system, it gives you an understanding of how this works. They probably have about 200 or so startups in that labeling program who have enjoyed certain incentives. And the last time I had checked, they had generated billions of dollars in revenue. So that sort of program has to be checked to see its effectiveness when they receive those incentives. So when you're now under the labeling process, and then the NSIA acting as the fund manager would, working with NiGAC, then be able to assess the needs of these startups and what they need to be able to scale, and then we'll provide them the funding accordingly. Now, the NSIA, for those of us that know, it doesn't operate like some random organization. This sits on our sovereign wealth, so the auditing process for how the funds they presently manage are done is a very strict process. It's not like some other funds where, I don't know, some legislator or some minister can just dip their hands in and then carry money and go and share. This is going to be a process that will be monitored. There is what is called a council agent that has also been introduced in the bill. This serves as a monitoring and evaluation agent. Now, every quarter, the council agent is supposed to release a report on the activities of the secretariat, the council, and the entire process that is going on. And this report will be published. So even the consultative forum that is made up of the startups themselves and the ecosystem stakeholders will be able to see the implementation process of the bill and how it is working and how the funding is being disbursed. And everybody will come to understand that X, Y, Z startups are involved in this process. This is how they are scaling. This is how they are building. So as much as possible, we have crafted it in a way that ensures transparency. Again, this is Nigeria, and we know the peculiar challenges we can face along the way. We cannot guarantee, that everything will go as planned. But in terms of what has been put in the bill to ensure that process, I would say we've to a good extent tried to cover that. And I don't know if that adequately answers your question.
Okay. Yes, I will still come back to that. But I mean, for now, that has shed quite a lot of insight as to the checks and balances and all of that. So quickly, Adezi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. I mean, I can't forget the role you also played. You played a key role in the development of the bill, right? 2 questions in mind. Considering the amount of, government parastatals or agencies involved in this particular this bill, right? And then understanding how Nigeria works. Recently, we tried reaching a particular website of the federal government where we called the number severally. It wasn't even going through. Sent emails, no response. We went there physically, and then our guy was like, okay, why not go? They call the numbers. Now for come the office. I'm saying it exactly how he said he told us, right? That's 1. 2, I have been to some of these places where they tell you, why we no send the proposal and we say, Organo the office, 2 weeks. Or they don't even have fuel in their generating set to, work in the offices, or they don't have paper, or they don't have something. If you go to a typical government setting, one of these things will be said. Considering the number of parastatals and agencies involved, head NSIA and some others, right? And all of that. Don't you think this would at any point in time pose any form of bottlenecks in terms of, how do I put it now? Coordinating the process or functioning as it ought to be. Don't you feel there will be any bottlenecks this would pose at some point?
I think that's a very, very good question. And I think it's a question.
Bearing in mind that it is actually very good, right, for them to play their role here. But their numbers, don't you think? Talk to me. Did you think about it, or did it come up at any point?
Yes, it did. I mean, you're drawing on the point of apathy and the concern that most Nigerians have when it comes to implementation. So yes, you could have one thing on paper, but then when it comes down to implementing, it's a whole different ballgame. And when we started this process, we did a risk assessment, and the key people that we brought around the table highlighted different things, and apathy and distrust and this negligence when it comes to public service delivery was one of them. And this is something and this is what informed the council that Davidson was talking about. So that council is made up of, is supposed to identify people who are quite serious with implementing stuff. It's supposed to be excellent folks in that council. in the Startup Consultative Forum and with the council agent that is acting as the M&E that would be reporting and publishing the process through which there's this engagement. There's that portal that also shows that has startups, labeled startups on that portal, that has different agencies on that portal. People can give complaints on that portal, people can give feedback on that portal, and all of these things will be published. So what we've done is we've tried to, on paper, put in mitigation strategies in the bill. And those things are what Davidson talked about. So they are in the bill. But when it comes to implementation, like he said also, you can't really also, because this is Niger, right? But then I want to ask you a question, Abraham, because it's a very valid question, right?
Talk to me.
And I'll throw it to you and to anybody else. If this was the private sector, we wouldn't have this kind of concern. Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. If this was the private sector, we wouldn't have this concern because
Sorry, Adeze. I lost you at some point. Can you say that again? Yes.
Okay, let me ask it again.
You said you want to ask a question, yes.
Let me ask it again. If this was private sector, if private sector was coming up with some kind of policy,
yes.
The consumers will not have this kind of apathy if it's not as pronounced with public sector, because they know that once they cry out or when they make a complaint, the private sector would adjust. And the private sector feels like they have something to lose if they don't please the consumers. My question is, why is there less apathy in the private sector and more apathy in the public sector? The private sector seems to be more afraid of what the consumers can do. If the private sector doesn't give quality products and services, they will lose customers, which means that they will lose revenue. Am I correct?
Very true.
So is there a role that, and this is why this is also quite interesting when it comes to policy, because the more I study, the more I realize that we do the first step of putting stuff on paper, which is a huge step, but we don't do the next step. The first step had everybody. This bill is one of the bills that had everybody co-create it. It was very inclusive. It had everybody play a role. It was ecosystem, the government, and the presidency. But this is what happens is that we will write the policy and then we'll hands off when it comes to implementation. What is the role of the public when it comes to holding governments accountable to what was written down? And it's something that we really need to think through really quickly. And I think that lies that in therein lies the answer to your question on the case study that you give around ineptitude in policy, in public service delivery.
So for me, asking me that question, there are quite a lot of things that just came to my mind almost immediately. One of those questions or one of those things I will look out for is, do we or can we in a third world country or a developing nation really hold the government accountable? You have had instances where there was a shootout between sister security agencies in this same country. This same country, not like it's one country to another. No, this same country, right? You have instances where one writes to another formally, to another to collaborate or request assistance. It doesn't work. You have had instances where we will lead a protest in this country. Two things happened. They either send security to you to disperse the crowd, or they turn a deaf ear. These things have consistently happened. I don't want to even talk about NSAS protests, so let's just keep that aside for now. But these were opportunities to hold government accountable. If you remove, sorry, hold on, I'm going somewhere. If you tell me you just write this and give it to the government, a hands off. Two things come to my mind. What makes me feel...
Abraham, I didn't say that we write it and give it to the government and hands off. I said that's what we do as Nigerians.
Okay, when we write but for this policy, one, you're not hands off.
So the point is that we shouldn't be hands off.
Thank you.
We should be engaging.
Thank you.
We should continue to engage until we see it through. With the NSAS example that you gave, it's very important that we understand this, because that
sorry.
No.
We have to. I haven't rounded up. Like I'm not done. I am not done.
Okay, looks like we've lost Abraham's network.
That protest alone sent a lot of messages. For once we came together in a while to speak up. Whether fully implemented or not, there was a message that was passed, right? Now, if we come together consistently to do that, to hold government accountable, at some point, they will sit up and do the needful. They will sit up to say, guy, we need to have a look at this again. At some point, there has been protests in the National Assembly. I mean, during the Saraki time, to some point, they heeded to quite a lot of these things. But I mean, I don't talk so much about these current guys, because I just hands off at some point. Not hands off, but I mean, how do I put it? People became less interested. But I am just saying that if we consistently engage these people, if we consistently hold the system accountable, if we consistently say, hey, wait a minute, you had a budget, right? What did you even do with it? We need to really scrutinize what happened. You say you did this and that. Where is it? Defend it. When you consistently hold the system accountable, they will sit up. So that was why I was saying I had something else in mind. I was just citing those ones as examples, right? But we need to engage them. We need to hold this system accountable. And that is what this is about. This policy dialogue series. We've had government officials who come here. We've had top government representatives who've been here. And we have consistently tried to hold them accountable to defend certain things. If not even defend, shed light or insight about some of these things. And people get to ask questions that get clarification or bash them when the need arise. So this is part of the platform. This is part of what we do here to engage the public, engage the system, engage the relevant stakeholders to see how we can checkmate what's going on and get answers at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. I think you answered the question. I think it's a game of incentives, right? Okay. It's a game of incentives, is what I would say. And how well we're able to understand incentives on both sides is how well we're able to play that game. But I would say that, that we do need to be consistent. And with the startup bill, it's the posture. So even though it's, goes into the National Assembly, it becomes an act. The tech ecosystem is going to be keeping an eye on that bill, and you do know that we will definitely speak up consistently.
I'm sure of that. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Okay, Davidson, I want to quickly ask one question, and then please, for everyone who's listening, please drop your questions in the chat box, and we would make sure it is directed to the relevant panel.
All right, so you've probably heard that you need to be training to failure, or at least close to failure, in order to build muscle, but most people have no idea what that looks like. So here's a really easy way to tell. All you got to do is stand up and go look in the mirror, and that, my friends,
hello,
is
Davidson,
true.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Somebody has his microphone on.
Okay. Thank you so much. So something happened on the 26th of January. I mean, I'm picking this from Channels Television, where it says, Rivers Governor Nyesom Wike hailed the Federal High Court in Abuja for its judgment on Wednesday, which barred the federal government from deducting funds from the federal account to fund the Nigerian police force and other agencies not listed in the constitution. We talk about seed funds, right? Where is this coming from? What's the sustainability mechanisms put in place? I just want you to share maybe some insights around that. Funding, the seed fund.
Okay, well, thank you for that question, which I consider an interesting one, because that has been strongly debated in some quarters. And the reason why people were debating it was that they felt, and I'll tell you this, even the Ministry of Justice, right, when they were vetting the bill, they kept quarreling over it. They would call us to explain. They would insert things there. And we'll tell them that, look, at the end of the day, this will backfire. And you've just read a judgment that speaks to that. People were requesting that, even Ministry of Justice, they wanted to put in things like NSITF fund. There's a fund that the NCC has, they wanted to put that there. People were talking about ITF fund. Even some folks were even talking about ETF, the Education Trust Fund. And our position is, in fact, Justice was saying we have to indicate percentages that will come from those funds into the seed fund. The challenge with that is these funds were set up for a particular purpose. For instance, the NSITF fund was set up to meet certain needs. You now want to create another law and another fund that will now be carrying out money from there. That's going to be problematic because it would mean you probably even need to amend the NIDA law. You need to amend all the other laws that you want to collect money from. And you are affecting things that were already set up for a purpose. So we didn't indicate where that will come from. What we did was we indicated that the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority would manage the fund, seed the fund, and determine how it would be administered and set up rules for running that fund. What that then does with the NSIA, which already has 3 funds or so that it is managing. And I'll give you an example because I was actually involved to an extent with that. There is this NGO called Global Citizen. Global Citizen collaborated with the NSIA and they set up a COVID-19 intervention fund where they've been raising money for COVID-19. Now, that didn't require government funding. It's private sector driven. It can be driven by anyway. So if the NSIA, who is the fund manager for the seed fund, sets it up and says XYZ is how this will be seeded from general public, from this or that existing fund that we have, this is where to come from, that will be left to them. They're not trying to legislate and create and say that we will bring money from different places. It just creates its own bottleneck and challenges. So that's what we did. It will be the NSIA that will come up with the modalities for managing the fund.
Okay. Thank you so much for that clarification. I just needed to get that insight on it and all of that. So thank you so much for that. Just to go to our comment section right now. So I see, okay, NiGAC is saying, thank you, Adeze, for honoring us with your presence. Okay, we can also raise our hands. Okay, Ezekiel Abiodun saying one of major problems here in Nigeria is that people's opinion are usually not considered as vital inputs when it comes to good governance. Okay. Okay, so that's what he is saying. Also, I see that Elder is putting up his hands to ask a question, which we'll quickly take, seeing that we're spent our time already. Elder, you want to say something?
Yes. Okay, so thank you very much, David, of course, for all of the clarity that you've given to us. I would say an excellent job was done with the startup bill, at least the draft startup bill that has been presented to the National Assembly based on, of course, what you've explained. So one question I would probably want to ask is, You spoke about the special form of registration that is given to startups, of course, within the ecosystem. So my question now is, with this special registration, will startups still need to go through, like the CAC, based on, of course, the content of the bill? That's number one. Do we need to go through a CAC to register, of course, a startup? Then another question I also want to ask is, the bill, now, beyond, of course, all of the tangible and intangible support that the bill gives to startups within our ecosystem, is the bill also paying particular attention to capacity development? Now, in areas of, we having software engineers, cloud DevOps, the cloud engineers, people that have the technical skill, because I think in Nigeria, one of the major drawbacks we have within the tech ecosystem is the fact that with millions of Nigerians, we have less than 100,000 software developers in this country. So is the bill paying specific attention, just like we've seen the Andela, we've seen the Alt School, we've seen Decacon, we've seen some other schools that come up with, this study now, pay later model, where you study, then when you end, you begin to pay. So is the bill also paying particular attention to capacity development, specifically, these technical skills that we know is very hard to come by in our ecosystem that can compete globally, but of course, can also create a large bubble for the Nigerian tech ecosystem. Then my last question would also be that, is it also possible for the Nigerian Global Affairs Council to have a draft, the final draft of the Nigerian startup bill, the one, of course, that was presented to the federal government, which has been submitted to the National Assembly, like you said? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so thank you. I'll probably start with your last question. Yes, it's possible to get the bill. There is a website that was created by the Nigerian Startup Bill Secretariat. I think that's startupbill.ng. So if you go there, you can download a copy of the bill, or if you don't see a copy, you can just send a message to them on the platform, and they will definitely forward a copy to you. And you can follow their handle at on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Just be part of the conversation and ask questions. There will always be people to attend to you on that. For capacity development and training, there are probably close to 10 sections to the bill that seeks to address that. Seeks to work with university. Like I said, NIDA sits as the secretariat for. So NIDA also has a lot of developmental programs that the bill indicates that they have to push within the sector. So the issue of training, development, capacity building, collaborating with hubs and incubators and accelerators, all of that is there. There are even provisions for the development of virtual parks, technology hubs, innovation hubs. All of that is also in the bill. Co-working spaces, all of that is provided for within the bill. So yes, that is definitely taken care of. What was the first question again? There were three. I think I've answered two.
Yes, the first question was on forgotten. Okay, so I think you answered the important question on the capacity development. I spoke about having access to the bill. Okay, I spoke about the CAC registration. Yes, that with the registration, this special registration status given to startups, will it be domiciled with the CAC, or will there be a special process, for these startups to get registered?
Okay, so part of the labeling process, right, would require you to. I mean, one of the conditions is for you to be registered at CAC already. However, you can be an unregistered company, like an innovator, for instance, or a business name, but you meet some of the criteria already highlighted for admission into the labeling process. So in which case, you can come into the program and then subsequently they can assist the founder in setting up a company. But one of the conditions for immediate acceptance into the program is for the company to really be registered at the CAC. Because you see, the CAC process, again, is something that is created by CAMA. You know, CAMA already says for you to have a company, it must be completed at CAC. So you cannot take away the CAC part of things without trying to amend CAMA in itself, which is not what we set out to do. We have to work within the confines of already existing laws and implement what we want.
Okay. Thank you so much, Davidson, for your time. We've spent an added 16 minutes in the conversation today, which has been very interesting, very educative, very, insightful as to how you've been able to share insights in the startup. So thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much, everyone who in the conversation today. We really appreciate you, and we thank you so much for making this very, 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 very impactful at the end of the day. We love you all for joining, and we say that we look forward to the next virtual policy dialogue series, and we hope to have you join us once again. Speaking today, we had Mr. Davidson Oturu, who is a partner at Alex. We also had Adeze Sokan, who is the country director, UK Nigeria Tech Hub. We also had Timothy, who is a non-resident policy fellow, and Oluwadamilare Afolabi, who joined in to share insight on this conversation today that was put together by the Nigerian Global Affairs Council. That is a technology-based and digital media-driven public policy and evidence-based research think tank focused on policy concerns that revolve around governance and public administration within the Nigerian space and how we interact with the larger society. Once again, we say thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much, Dami. Thank you so much, Davidson. Thank you so much, everyone. And we look forward to having you next month at the same time. Once again, bye.
Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our father's land with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain, to serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. O God of creation, direct our noble course, guide our leaders right, and use the truth to know. In love and honesty to grow, and live in just and true. Great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign.